Welcome to episode 12 of Creative Collaboration Conversations with Veronica and Jillian. And I am Jillian. Hello.
Hello, and I'm Veronica, and welcome to a very chilly autumn day.
Yes, it is. Suddenly.
Yes, and today actually we're gonna reopen a topic that we discussed about, and that is marketing tactics. And we decided to actually bring it up to life because guess what? A listener asked for it. So I'm super excited because we do have listeners. So thank you everyone that is listening.
Yes.
And secondly is that people are not only listening, but they actually try to apply, and they take what we are saying and they want to learn more and go deeper into specific topics. So very happy about that.
Yeah, I feel like it's an interactive platform in a way. It's like, although a little bit kind of somewhat disjointed, but we're, kind of and being able to engage with folks who are listening. So we share something, we get some feedback and some suggestions. And so that's how today's topic came to be. In episode 2, we talked about the power of networking. And so we had a listener reach out and ask us to do an episode on kind of breaking it down further and discussing our individual networking tactics. So I feel like it's a great sign. And from the beginning, we said, our purpose for this podcast is to get to know each other better, to learn and have fun, but also to see if we could, help or inspire, another person. And so I think we could say mission accomplished because somebody is interacting with us. And so here we go.
And was episode 2. Yay!
Yeah, I know. Back when we were super rookies. Now we're all the way to episode 12. Come on.
Can you believe that? But before we start our normal chat, because let's be honest, this is one of our favorite topics, networking. And
yes,
I'm afraid this will be a very, or maybe not afraid, but maybe everyone will be happy because I have a feeling this will be a longish episode.
I know, could be. Yeah.
Shall we do our normal check-in? Like anything you want to share? What happened? What did you do this past week?
So, oh yes. So I went to. It was my first time ever attending the Social Enterprise World Forum event that was held in Amsterdam, and it was really really eye-opening. I met some amazing people and had just very inspiring and validating conversations with folks. And actually, it's kind of apropos because I networked quite a bit, and that was part of my reason for going. Is I'm now approaching year 3 here in my new home country and new home continent. It's really important for me to get out there and to meet people, to shake hands, and and to network. And so that's what I was doing. It's a lot of learning, creating kind of context around the subject matter, but ultimately to build relationships. So so that's my update. And then I had a birthday. It's like, wow, I'm like trying to own 45. So here I am, 45. Yeah. So those are my updates. Yeah.
So happy. Oof, I'm fighting a cold and I feel everything is in slow motion and frustrating, to be honest. Very vulnerable here. But I did attend the past weeks some networking events as well. And it's good to be there. And I think we shared this in other ones, that the energy is different. Yeah. But I have to say something that really puzzled me was there were events and conferences around entrepreneurship and startups. And there were big names invited to speak and share. But what really surprised me was the fact that even in this new era that we are working in, different economy, we are still discussing about management instead of leadership. And I find this very important in terms of how do you choose your team? How do you motivate? How do you build the relationships? How do you how do you decide what type of partnerships you want and how to work? So that actually puzzled me, and I reached out to specific leadership coaches, or not necessarily coaches, but thought leaders, and got some. What my question towards them was, what's the difference between management and leadership? Because I have a feeling not a lot of people really understand it, or even if they apply some of the tactics between leadership, they still call it management. And I think that's actually the core issue. If we are not using the right terminology, we can't really change the mindset, because then we are discussing a different language. We are discussing about, it's the same term, but we are understanding we give different meanings to the term.
Yeah.
And I think that can be very dangerous.
So I have a proposal. Can we dig into that topic in a future episode? Because I am really interested in that, and I've been doing some work in that space as well. And I'd love to have that conversation with you. So can we add that to our list for a soon, like a coming up soon topic? Because I would love to chat about that.
So let's see, episode 13 or 14.
Yeah, I think we have so let's just put it for, stay tuned and a future.
Or maybe again, my normal comments, write in the comment section, do you want to hear about this? And actually, I'm curious what people believe of, like what's the intake? Like, do our audience, do our listeners see a difference between management and leadership? Or for them is the same thing? Is this a startup or a corporating? But it doesn't really apply here either, because I was in a very startup-ish environment and the topic still was there and no one addressed it.
So I have a question. At this event, how about, this is my attempt as a segue, by the way. Tell me about the networking. Were there specific networking sessions, or kind of how did you show up to network, or how did you network at the session? And perhaps we can use that as a springboard to open up the conversation.
Sounds good. Okay, you know me. It doesn't matter the environment. I will still go and say hello and get to know some people. But I have to say, it's especially this event that I'm having. I'm not going to give names because I don't want to either put them in a bad light, or because the event was good, don't get me wrong. But it's better not to name them at this point, considering my previous remark. I think they were over 200 people, and the other one was 1,000 people, over 1,000 people. So really big ones. The 1,001 was a proper conference with whole stand hall where you could go and speak with people and things like that. So, and really nicely had some really nice area arranged where you could sit down and have a proper conversation, even like you just stay there and have a coffee and somebody will show up, and if you're open and say hello, you can strike a conversation. So that was really good. The previous one was just a couple of hours, around 200 people, as said, and was a little bit chaotic, even if the audience was good. But you are, if you don't have the right personality and to go and meet people,
it can be overwhelming.
And you do see people knowing each other, so they tend to kind of stick together. Or if you have a connector between them, like the two of us, we are definitely connectors, and I will start introducing you to other people and we strike a conversation. Can be very awkward. So definitely I do see room for improvement there. And another thing, the people that were actually going and chatting, they were salespeople.
So can I jump on that one for a second?
Oh, yes, please.
So just to, so when I kind of crack open the topic of networking, one of the first kind of nuggets or, subtopics that rises to the surface is what I think of as a misconception. I have found, because I've been involved in teaching and kind of studying networking for 25 years. Not 40, or remember the time you said, oh yeah, like 4, I'm like, what? No, not that long. Anyway, for like 25 years. Anyway, And I think it's interesting that it seems that there seems to be this presumption that in order to be an effective networker, you have to be an extrovert, and the reverse, that extroverts are good networkers.
Yes.
And I often will say the opposite. I think that a lot of times, and this isn't perhaps a generalization, it's not meant to be derogatory at all, it's just an observation, my own observation, is that a lot of times people that are, so two things, people that are extroverts often kind of dominate the conversation, they do all of the talking and whatnot, and so that it can be effective in that people can be attracted to that, but it doesn't really generate reciprocity, which for me is like a core kind of a core ingredient of sustainable but also fulfilling networking strategy, or just a belief. It's like a pillar to it is to create reciprocity. And so it's not for me to be the loudest, and it can create that effect, especially on social media with the vanity metrics. It creates like, wow, there's this idea of like they're such a great networker because they have all these people, but it's not. A lot of times it's hollow, it's not reciprocal, and the people in the posse may not feel that they can actually reach out and have a conversation, or they feel like there's this weird power thing that goes on, this strange power dynamic. So I just took that a little bit to the dark side, but on the flip side, I think
you did
people that listen well. Is it okay? Is it making sense?
Yeah, go. No, go.
So I think people that generally people that are introverts tend to be more present and better listeners and good at asking questions. And to me, those are like the most important skills that can lead to effective networking and ultimately building relationships, is being present, asking questions, and then listening. And I would say actively listening, as opposed to listening and waiting just for the chance to say what you want to say, but instead to be present and to listen. And so I feel like those are, I think, counterintuitive for a lot of people, but that's, to me, like the secret sauce of networking is just those three things, which are, they don't sound super exciting or like, these like buzzword, like really sexy topics, but it's really quite effective.
I'm really happy you said that, for several reasons, and I'm trying to just break them down. But actually, it doesn't matter if you're introverted or extroverted, but everything goes back to, why are you at that particular event? What's the goal? What do you want to achieve? And if you just want to go and speak and be loud, then you're not going to make any connections. What's the point? It's better go on a stage and have a presentation, because that shows me what you are there just to be seen, not to build a relationship. So how can you actually get to know a person if you are not, as you said, shutting up and actually asking questions, shutting up and listening? So what's the goal? The goal is to just be seen, then go and be as loud as possible. The goal of the networking, your goal, I mean, like, why are you attending that particular event or networking or whatever it is to get new clients, do your research in advance, see who's there, see who do you want to speak, and actively look for them, or somebody that can introduce you, or even better, just to reach out to them prior to the event and tell them, I will be there. How about we have a 5-minute chat, and I'll look for you, or give a specific time of meeting, like be very pragmatic and very organized. Or are you just curious? Like, depending on the event, usually I'm going with this notion, I'm curious. I want to see who's there, and just, you never know what will happen, right? And then you actually have to do exactly what you said. And you need to go and just ask questions. The less you speak, the more you listen, I think the better the networking for you it is. And one more thing that actually everybody is I think is very, very important. Networking is just the first step. It's like it's not even the courtship, it's just the speed dating. You go and see, is there a click between us and our businesses? Is that something interesting? Am I curious enough to follow up? But the secret is not the networking. The secret is, what do you do afterwards? Do you follow up and have a virtual coffee or a coffee or a business meeting, or what's happening afterwards? Because if you go and you speak with 100 people, even if you just speak or listen or whatever you do, but you don't do anything regarding that afterwards, what's the point?
So let me ask a quick couple of questions then. Okay, so a few things. So one, I'm curious how events fit into your kind of networking tool bag. Is it like your first tool, your first kind of go-to? It's like, I'm going to network and let me go to events. Is that one, or are there other things that you do more, like other favorite tools? I guess I'm kind of butchering this question, but I'm trying to ask without leading. I'm just curious. Yeah. So I guess that question is, how does how do events fit into your networking strategy?
It keeps on changing. It depends on the goal and depends on the event and depends honestly on my state, like where am I and what's my energy level, and where I am with my business at that particular point. I wouldn't say I feel good. It gives me energy to meet people, and but not necessarily. Yes, for business, it's very easy to get to know them, but also for me to get inspired. So I tend to go to events, not particular. My main goal is not to go and find clients or find leads, but to get it, to be inspired, to see what is happening out there. What can I add to what am I doing? I am organizing a lot of events, and actually we are preparing. We had an episode about ONS, like the online networking with a spin, that we are changing at this point. And actually in November, we are launching something different, and a lot of things are implemented. So when I attend an event, I have like two hats, or maybe even three. One is like from the organizing events point of view, like how are they doing it? Can I learn something? How can I improve what I'm doing? The second one is like be inspired, as said, and get to know people. Maybe they could be my clients, but I don't know. There are some events where you go and you know your client is there, and you do the preparation in advance and you set up meetings and you go there. But I have to admit, lately those type of events for me were less. Also because we had a pandemic and that really influenced. But the focus for me at this point is actually moving more. I am the one organizing, and we are actually planning. We are planning base 2024. That will be hopefully a face-to-face. We are preparing a new series of events that will be quarterly face-to-face events. So I'm usually the one that's like, you come towards us and let's have a conversation, then the other way around. This is a switch. So this is a very long answer for a direct question. I used to, now I'm in process of changing how I'm using the networking events, but primarily for me are to be inspired and see what is happening out there. How about you? How do you use them?
So I just want to underscore quickly, I'm kind of happy that you responded the way you did, because that's what I was trying to do with the way I framed the question, was to say events, because it's not attending events. It can also be hosting events. And I think that's a really effective tactic for people to think about, is to delineate the difference, right? And how anybody could do really either. So we can all, attending events is one thing, and there's a lot we could unpack about, specific tactics of how to maximize the face-to-face, or even if it's online, the individual time that you can have with people, right? So some things like you had mentioned, finding out ahead of time who's going, if possible, following through social media threads, look at the schedule, and to reach out to people ahead of time, etc. So a lot of planning, or being there, meeting people. I'll just throw a quick one. One thing I do at events, and I just did at this event, is when you meet somebody. So a lot of events will have an app that you can use to meet people and connect with folks, that can be great. I also will jump right into LinkedIn, and a lot of people don't know that you can open up and use the scan, the QR code in the search bar to scan each other, so you can connect immediately. And then when I do that, I'll just send a quick message to them, and I'll just put like, so glad we met at whatever the name of the event is. Look forward to staying in touch, so that it's there, so that I can come back to it later, and it's already, the conversation's already started. So there's some of those things. I think on the flip side, hosting events is something that I think there's great opportunity for. And I think a lot of people are intimidated or don't, they think of like, oh, how can I host this big event? But it can start small. And so I'll just share one quick tactic that I used that was pretty effective, I would say, for a number of years. I used to host kind of curated coffees or lunches, business lunch or business coffee. And I would be very selective about the different mix of people that I would invite, because I realized that it was more, it would add more value than me just doing individual sessions with these people. So I bring them together, and be able to then in a group setting say, okay, you should talk to her for this reason. And like, everybody would get to know everybody else there. And it would also create an environment for each person to have the spotlight on them and to allow them to shine. Because and I feel like there's a lot of kind of magic in this. It's really it's genuine, but it's a really powerful kind of tool. I hate to think of it that way, but it's a powerful thing that you can do. A tactic, I suppose. Because for most people, if we're in the presence of others and we're telling everybody about how great we are, it can be a little bit of a turnoff, right? So I mean, it's good for us to have confidence and be able to own the things that we have done, but there's a difference between that and then overdoing it and telling everybody about how great we are, all of our things.
Exactly. And it's
so
such
for a lot of people, it is. There's a line, but for a lot of people, they have amazing things going on, but they're not really sure, or they're shy or whatever. So to me, that's networking, is creating a space for other people to shine. So doing that in a kind of a controlled environment, a very like warm group, and being able to introduce and to be able to share things that I know about this person or things that I've observed, and to edify them, makes them feel empowered or makes them feel better, and it helps position them to everybody else. So I think you could even do that with a small group of you, the listener, could do that with a small group of people that and or want to get to know better in your own local community. I think there's a great opportunity to do that, and that really helps to for what we call like thought leadership or just networking, because people begin to know you as the person who knows other people or who can facilitate, and there's a lot of opportunities tied to that.
This is exactly how the online networking with the spin started. That was exactly the idea behind it. They just help people connect. And the core of it is still there. And the most effective events are the ones that they have a very simple purpose. The more complicated you do them, or the bigger you want to do them, or it gets too complicated, and then the purpose is lost. So less is better, actually. Just stick to one thing. You can play with it, you can be as creative as you want, but keep it simple. I think so. I agree with that. And I think there's one more, sorry to jump in, but one more thing that you need to consider is the amount of people attending events, because there are several types of events, and the connection, the networking and the relationships that are built during those events depend, and they differ quite a lot depending on the size of the event. And they are like the best, for example, for conferences, the best way to create a powerful environment where people are connecting and good conversations are held, and connections. Statistics show, like there are studies that show it's 150. So this is why when we created the base conference, the first one that was face-to-face, that was our goal, and we managed to get like 150 people to be in the room. Because if you have more than that, it's overwhelming. And then you have huge events like the Next Web, where you have over 10K. And honestly, I was overwhelmed. Actually, all the time you get there, it's just too much. And then you feel like, I need to plan my meetings for that. I need to have a goal, because otherwise I'm getting lost in all of that. You don't know, there are so many options that you tend to you're overwhelmed. And then you have the very small, very cozy ones where everybody gets to know each other, and speak, and like the one that you just described, dinner or the lunch.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's interesting. I think on the event side of things, this is a topic I love chatting about, and I feel like we could have actually done a whole episode just on like event networking. It happens to be one of the things I've done quite a bit of in my career, both in terms of so I had a client that hosted and produced, I believe it's the largest social media conference in the world. I believe it was and may still be, I'm not sure, but they were a client for I think 6 years. And so I was a networking ambassador. So helping to set up the structure of the conference to facilitate networking for all of the attendees. But then I challenged them that networking goes beyond attendees. It also involves the sponsors, it involves the speakers. It's more holistic. So
you can do so many things.
Yeah, you can do. So then we actually scaled that, and then we began to onboard other networking ambassadors and train the whole team. So we did that. So I'm familiar with like conference networking through the lens of the conference producers or facilitators or organizers, right? On that side. On the other hand, I've also had a great experience with a client that which is kind of up our alley. So they were a healthcare tech company. And what they did was they kind of, they got out in front of their competitors in a way and produced this conference. And then so they were the conference organizer, so they could control the environment per se, but they were very strategic about it. And they would then invite their competitors to participate in panels and to speak. And so they would edify their competitors, realizing that the more they could advance together, it creates a greater opportunity for all of the players, right?
Collaborate really instead of compete.
Yeah, collaborate, exactly. So that's our whole podcast. So that's why I'm like, you'll like this example. But one of the things I think was true for them, and it can be true for it's also relevant for an individual person, is how to maximize those face-to-face opportunities. So my work with them was to create a plan for their team, their executive team, and just their entire team that was going to be at the event, for them to have a very kind of structured strategy and plan that was, started before the conference, and then what they would do during the conference, and then afterwards, for them to maximize the opportunity. Because it's you can have this whole thing and you feel like all these things are going to happen, you're going to get all this business, you have all these ideas, but if they're not connected to some sort of a strategy and plan and to the granular, what can I do, it can be very easily a week later and you're still trying to look through your business cards and figure out what am I going to do,
and haven't done anything. I agree. I think the most important thing that everyone should remember when it comes to networking is not the networking itself, it's what do you do afterwards. Because you meet a lot of people, and probably half of them you'll never, like, was a nice conversation, but that's it, and you're never gonna see them again or remember them. But what do you do with the rest? What do you do with those that actually can be your clients, or you had a very good conversation and you feel like, there may be an opportunity here, but if you don't follow up, I think that what I want you to leave our listeners with is not actually how do you network, is what do you do after the networking, because everyone is so focused on that particular moment. But let's be honest, if you are very, very shy and you sit in a corner and you refuse to speak with anyone, it's impossible not to have at least a couple of conversations when you go to one of these events. Because even if you are not the outgoing person, you'll have people like that, and they will come and say hello, like the two of us probably. If we see you there and we just entered the room, we're going to say hello and we're going to introduce you to the next person we meet. So it's impossible for you not to speak with someone unless you really don't want to. So let's cut this one, because we already shared in the previous episode. I think what what is important, and I think what people are lacking, and this is why the networking is not that efficient for some people, is what do you do afterwards? And I do like, I'm also always with my phone, and with actually LinkedIn used to have an even better thing before the scan your code, because if you are on Bluetooth,
the bump,
yes, and everybody
the bump,
yeah, I would love that. Yeah. You were connected with 50 people in 5 minutes, was brilliant. Anyways, I always do the same. And then what I do, I like the fact that you already send them a message. I don't do that because I like to be present there. But what I do the second day, I look like, what are my latest connections, and try to follow up with them. Because, you know, under your network, you see like the latest connections that you have. So that's my secret on how to follow up that one. But then you need to start remembering or looking at them, because maybe they share the specific aspect of their business with you, but maybe they do more. So just be curious and allocate time to do something about it. And that will change the way you interact with people. Yes.
So just out of curiosity, thanks for, you know, just to I'm trying to think about this person who asked us about tactics. I'm trying to kind of push us to be as granular and specific as possible. So I'm curious, we've both talked about how we utilize LinkedIn. Are there other things that you do, or other tools or processes that you have that help you to continue to, perhaps on the follow-up side, or just networking in general?
I follow up on LinkedIn, and I do use send them the Calendly link, for example, so we can book a call. Or I do make notes, and with some people, for example, from the conference, we spoke, but what I'm going to do now, I'm going to invite them to my ONS. So I'm placing reminder for myself to do different things. I'm looking into automating some things, but I can't say I found the right solution for me, because at this point, as you know, I'm in a way of restructuring the company. So it doesn't make sense to focus on this. I need to be 3 steps higher before I'm going into this process. But at this point, it's more personal. How about you?
So there's 2 bits. I want to make sure I come back to bit 1. So remind me to come back to bit 1. So the second bit is, so LinkedIn, but I also use a CRM, and then I will create a tag or something of the name of the event and the date, or the month and date that I met them, because then it helps me to be able to follow up later. And then I also will set the timer of how frequently or when I want to follow up with them next. So for some people, it's like, oh, you know, once a quarter be fine. So, you know, 3 months after the event, or whenever I met them, I want to follow back up with them. For some other people, if I want to get to know them more, it might be 1 week, or something like that, shorter time frame. So I do use a CRM for that, to help kind of record notes and things, also to add tags about when I met them, and then related contacts. So I do use that. The other thing I like is snail mail, which I've done that for many years, to just send a random card to somebody, or send something
I like that
I thought of them, right? So I told that story as related to the story I told in the Power of Networking, episode 2, about the harmonica. I mailed the harmonica, the little mini harmonica, but I do like to utilize snail mail for things. It's very unexpected. And then, you know, you can also use content, right? Content is a way to continue to facilitate or build a relationship, either by featuring somebody or a company in a blog article, or in a social media post, or, you know, both. Podcasting or events, like you said, if there's an event you're hosting, or if you have a podcast, is a great opportunity to invite, you know, such and such person to be a guest on your show. Or if you're hosting, you know, business coffees or luncheons in your community, that's a great place to invite them. Or if you're doing an online thing like your ONS. So I think there are a lot of ways that we can go about facilitating relationships. And tools. And I think, you know, so that's what I think about that. So that's bit 2.
And bit 1?
Okay. So bit 1, I feel like I should have started here.
I fully agree with bit 2. Yes.
You do? All right, cool. So that's how I go about that. Although let me say one thing about bit two before we go back to bit one. So, and I think this is super relevant for all of us. And I think this is the kind of thing all of us can do today, right? It's like so great to have all these ideas, but what can I do today? All of us are guilty of this, of having attended an event or been somewhere and met somebody, and we had the best of intentions. We really meant to follow up with them, but we just haven't. And now it's been like that awkward amount of time where you're like, will they even remember me?
Is it too
like,
late?
Is it too late? So all of us, and here's the thing, all of us have had that experience. So therefore, we can be empathetic. Like we understand that feeling. So my suggestion is to find, like, it's a challenge. Like find, I want to say 3, but like do 1 today. Find somebody that you meant to follow up with. It can be 3 months ago. It can be 3 years ago. It doesn't matter. And just write to them and say, oh my gosh, here I am all of this time later. I whatever, it is what it is. But and to me, it's going to be a positive. It's like, yeah, it's been 3 years, but you are still on my mind. And so exactly. I had to write, it's been so long. Yeah, you may not remember me, but I remember you. And what I remember is that you said X or you did Y or you something that you can like help to anchor their memory. Like, oh yes, I remember that thing.
And if you do that, the impact is even higher.
Yeah, and that's how to do it. And all right, so that's bit 2. And if you just let me indulge for a moment. I'm going to use that to wrap into bit 1, which is what I should have started with. I should have started this conversation because anytime I've ever talked about or done any kind of, all the networking workshops and coaching and all that stuff that I do, I always say that networking starts, it's like there's like the precursor. It's not networking, go out and do event. It's not any of that. It's so much about the pre stuff, right? So it's the mental side of things. So the 3 ways I think about, the precursor of networking. So first is posture. And so the posture can be a physical posture. It can also be a mental posture. To just be aware of it. But I think that I love doing this kind of thing in person kind of workshop and just being able to demonstrate body language and how we stand, how we project ourselves, and how powerful that is as a tool or a networking tactic. And I could give many, many examples. Like for example, I'll just give you one. Posture. So one time I was at a coffee shop and I lived in Los Angeles, and I was just actually no, I have a better example. So I went to it. So this is like a real actual example. Okay. So I went to short example. So I went to a LinkedIn conference years ago, or a panel at a local hotel about LinkedIn when LinkedIn was like becoming a thing. And I went because I wanted to see who the panelists were and what the composition of the audience was. Because I'm a nerd and I pay attention to things like that. I was interested to learn, but I really wanted to see that. So I got to the event and I got stuck in some traffic. I was a little late. So I snuck in on the side and there was 1 seat available, sat down. And then I proceeded to listen. And as I sat down, some people in the room kind of waved at me, and I just tried to not be disruptive and kind of hello. So I'm following the discussion and taking notes and whatnot. And I had an iPad and my iPhone and I'm taking notes. I'm just doing my thing. At the intermission or whatever, the guy sitting, or the end of the day or whatever it was, the guy sitting next to me, this guy, John, he handed me took out a business card and he flipped over his business card and he wrote down this woman's name and phone number. And he said, I think you should call this woman because I think you can help her. I think you can help us. And I didn't even know who this guy was. So I ended up calling this woman, who ended up being the marketing officer for this large financial institution. And that led me to then having 3 speaking engagements across the US. The second of which brought me to California, from Boston, brought me to California, which is where I ended up meeting my now wife. So all of this because of this body language thing. So I literally did not say anything. This guy had a presumption about me because of what he observed, and that led to business.
And how people interacted with you.
Yeah, this is it. So I think, and so anyway, there's a whole bunch of stuff about posture. So there's that.
Yes.
There's mental posture, how we're thinking. The next part is purpose, and what is our purpose? And you kind of struck on this early on in our conversation today, which is when I should have jumped in with this part. Purpose. Are we trying to network to get something? And so for me, I have never done that. I don't network to get. I network to give. It sounds so cliche.
You actually
and
get,
ew.
but that comes
it's
later.
Not, yeah, and I am networking. I'm looking for, yes, how I think of it. I'm looking for assets, for seeds that I can plant in my garden, so that I can facilitate introductions later for other people. I have never gone to net. Yeah, I've never.
I like how
gone
you said
anywhere.
It.
Yes. Yeah, to network for myself, to get business, or to get anything ever. Yeah,
because you're not
every
get
piece
the
of business
there.
ever has come to me from doing this. That's the irony.
Exactly, and I'm so happy you said that, because you are not gonna get the chance to have a proper conversation in that environment to be able to get to a business chat. What you're doing is you're curious and you see, is there a click? Can we actually, as you said, you're placing a seed, and the seed can be placed in your bag as well. So it's mutual. But that's the whole purpose of there. Just go and be curious and see who's there and what is happening. But the business will not be conducted there.
No, and so that's the purpose, is like, I'm looking for people to elevate. I'm looking for interesting people I can introduce. I'm looking for who would be good that how can I help them? What's going on? So that's my purpose. And then the third part is the plan, right? So have a plan. Yeah. What am I going to do? I'm going to connect them on LinkedIn. What am I going to do with it? Just be thinking about it. Do I want to reach out to people ahead of time? Some conferences, some opportunities are for that. But honestly, for me, and that's also the reason I asked what role events play in your kind of networking strategy. Because for me, if I did the math on it, probably a contender as far as productivity or output, second to or in parallel to events, would be like standing in line at coffee shops. And so my thing with that is, it's so funny how people think as if there's a switch, like, all right, turn it on. Okay, now I'm networking, turn it off. Now I'm not networking. It's not really that way.
You can't do that.
Or your purpose and how you are. Yeah. So for me, anywhere I go, I have this posture. I'm aware of my posture, and I'm aware of my purpose. And so I am open and always behaving the same way. And so therefore opportunities are generated everywhere, not just at an event. It's not just go there. It's just being in your normal, regular life. There's incredible opportunity all around us if we're just open to it, I think.
I'm so happy you said that, because actually 2 clients, I got them while walking my dog.
There you go.
Yeah. Nothing to do with business. The discussions were about dogs and things like that. And then you start getting to know the person, and you start asking questions, and you are curious. So it's I totally agree with you. It's about the attitude and how open you are and what you're doing. And I think we can. I have so many things to add to this, but I just saw the time, and I think this will be very long.
I know, you're probably right.
I think we need to wrap it up, but I do want to, like, you gave me an idea. I do want to launch a challenge besides the one that you launched, reaching out.
Okay.
And it's about the attitude. And like, my friends always tell me that, like, I'm having strange conversations with people on the street. But what I'm changing, when I'm going, I will just smile at people. If I see someone, and I just go and be open. And it doesn't matter who they are. And you should treat everyone the same. And this is actually what I hate at networking events, because you see some of the people like, oh, you're just that. I don't want to speak with you. And for me, that's like, in that case, I really don't want to know that person. But just go on the street and smile at people and see what happens.
Yeah. So I have that, actually. I wrote an ebook many years ago about this topic, about 9 steps to grow your professional network. And one of them is the smile challenge. And it sounds so silly. It sounds really silly. But if you do it, it's amazing how you can stand out, making eye contact. And I know there's some cultural things, but in general, eye contact and just smiling at somebody is like,
just be open.
Wow. Yeah, they automatically are gonna be open. So I love that you brought that up. I do the smile challenge as well. I love that. So yes, that's also a challenge. Smile at people, strangers.
But wait, smile genuinely. Don't go and force a smile. Because
don't be weird.
if you're in a bad place and you just don't want to speak with anyone, don't do it. But if you have a good day, just look around and smile at people. And just the fact that somebody will smile at you and will tell you have a good day will make you feel better as well. So it doesn't need to be
a great way.
It's just for your soul, just to feel better. And you're gonna make someone else day better as well.
Yeah, that's a great way. And that's an excellent way to wrap up our episode for today with that challenge, the smile challenge. Yes.
And don't forget also the reaching out challenge.
Yeah.
And I think it's a perfect moment to stop because my coughing is coming back. So,
okay, perfect.
Thank you everyone for listening and tuning in, and till next time.
Till next time. Cheers.